everyone. My name is Bonnie Waterhouse, and I'm the president and co-founder of Voices Against Lyme Disease. I'm here today to give you a presentation about ticks, about the environment, about Lyme disease, prevention, and symptoms. And before I get started, I'd like to first do a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, this program is specially developed for middle school and for teens, such as in the high school. In addition, if you like the presentation and would want us to come in and do a presentation in your school or in your summer camp or whatever, we'd be happy to do that. We also have some material that we could send to you if the tape is sufficient for you, but you'd like additional information. We can certainly do that. Everything else you could find on our website, which is vald.org. So it's valdct.org. In addition, we have a Gmail account, which is voicesagainstlymeDisease@gmail.com, and we have a Facebook page as well. So please feel free to contact us at any time. So here we go. First of all, I wanted to tell you that we are a nonprofit. Now, what I normally will do is kind of talk a little bit about a nonprofit, okay? Nonprofit people, exactly what it says. We do not have profit. At the end of the year, there is no profit. We also, our organization is fully volunteer organization, which means no one gets paid. Now, part of being involved in a nonprofit, and we would love all of you to think about that, because that might be something you might like to do as well. Nonprofits usually you have a passion for whatever that nonprofit is. And I have a passion to get the word out about Lyme disease and ticks. And the reason why I have that passion is I have a son that's had Lyme disease for almost 29 years. So what I don't want to happen is I don't want anyone else, any kids, any parents to have to go through that. It's important that everyone understands about ticks and how to prevent and how to be aware of them. So that's my passion, and that was the reason for starting this nonprofit organization. Now, my objective today, as I mentioned, is really to talk about the tick environment, how the ticks engorge, what you can do to prevent it, all of that. And one of the main reasons why this is so much more important than it was even 6 months ago is a number of the symptoms for COVID-19 are also symptoms for Lyme disease. And because people have been inside, they've been isolated, or maybe they're taking nice long walks that they can do on their own or with just their family, that's wonderful. You need that fresh air. But the thing is, what can happen is you need to be aware of those ticks that are out there. Now, you do not have to be actually in the woods to get bit by a tick, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. So some of the symptoms that are similar to COVID-19 and Lyme disease are fevers, flu-like symptoms, aches, being tired, temperature. All of that is very, very similar. So let's say you go in and you get tested for COVID-19 and it comes back negative and you're still feeling crummy. And maybe you go and get another COVID-19 test and it's still negative. And if you've been outside, it's very possible that you got bit by a tick. So that's something you need to be very much aware of and think about it as we go through the next 6 months, the next year. Hopefully, we will be getting rid of COVID-19. But just so you know the similarity between them. Now, normally what I would do when I'm in a class, I would say, have any of you ever seen a tick? Now, when I ask that question, I usually get probably 90% of the kids in the class will raise their hand and they'll say, yes, I've seen it. Then I ask another question, and the next question is, do you know anybody with Lyme disease? And at that point, I get anywhere between 50 and 65% of the kids telling me their mom, their cousin, their brother, whatever. So you can see it's very prevalent. It happens, and it's happening more and more, especially here in Connecticut, when it seems like every year or so there are a couple of new ticks that are now here. And we're going to very briefly go into those brand new ones in this past summer and in early fall. So we'll get into that. One of the things I did want to show, or at least talk to you about, when I do the presentations, we play a game. And the game is actually called Truth or Myth. And there's a whole sheet in here. And this is a good way, number one, if I hold off and don't ask these questions until the end of the presentation, it's a good way to see if everybody's listening to me. Or I often will do it throughout the presentation. And a couple of very, very simple ones. Dogs cannot get Lyme disease. Is that a truth or is that a myth? And of course that's a myth. And that is also something we'll be talking about. I also have on here only 3,000 to 4,000 children actually have Lyme disease per year. No, that's false. It's more like almost 100,000, anywhere between 75,000 and 100,000 children, ages 5 to 14, actually have Lyme disease. So they're great questions. If you want things like this, again, just ask me, send a note through the Gmail, the teachers or your parents. Okay, so why don't we talk about Lyme disease throughout the year? Okay, everybody seems to think that Lyme disease only happens maybe in the spring and through summer and maybe a little bit in the fall. Well, that's not the case. Ticks are out just about 12 months of the year. And one of the reasons for that is, especially recently, over the years, is the climate change, okay? In the fall, what happens is the ticks go underneath those leaves that have fallen, okay? They go underneath those leaves and they're hiding. Then it starts to snow. And it's snowing piles of snow on top of those leaves. And what's under the leaves? Those ticks. So they're staying nice and warm. So if you get a little bit of a thaw and some of the snow melts or all of the snow melts, and this has happened in January and February, those ticks are going to come crawling out. So we know them, we know, even the scientists and the researchers know, they are out there 12 months of the year, which is all the more reason. Maybe you're not rolling around on the leaves, though as a kid I did, I jumped into the leaves, but maybe your dog is, okay? And it's very likely when your dog is doing that, he or she could be getting ticks on them and bringing them in the house. And when that happens, those ticks could drop off and they could be on you or maybe your brother or your sister or someone else. So it's important to understand they are there all the time. The other interesting thing is initially they used to think the ticks were only in the Northeast. That's no longer the case. It is basically throughout the United States. It's in every country in the world except one. And I'm wondering, even though I can't hear you as to what you think might be the country, it's actually Antarctica. They have been found in the Arctic. They have never been found in Antarctica. That is the only, I won't call it a country, a continent really, that there are no ticks at this point in time. So you could see no matter where you go, it's very possible there are going to be ticks there. So, as I started to say earlier, there is an average of 300 to 400,000 people that are diagnosed with Lyme disease, and that equates to 25% of them being children, as I said. So that could be anywhere between 75,000 and 100,000 kids per year. What that equates to? What it equates to is actually 4 school buses loaded with children per day diagnosed with Lyme disease. That's a lot of kids. Lyme disease doctors, and actually they call them Lyme literate doctors, basically are saying that there are probably 60% of the people, I know you don't like statistics, but I'm only going to give you a few. 60% of the people that get Lyme disease probably have what they call a coexisting tick-borne illness. In other words, that tick was not only carrying Lyme disease, but it was carrying Babesia, Bartonella, Anaplasmosis, all of these different other tick-borne illnesses, many of them with different symptoms. 60% is quite a huge amount. Now, I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, oh, you know, if I get bit, I'll see it coming up, I can get it off me. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a couple of minutes. The other thing, you know, you probably hear that Lyme disease will cause a rash. Well, it causes a rash with only 35 to 40% of the people that get bit. Many people never see the tick, they never see the rash. And only about 35 to 40% of the people ever see that rash. So at one point you're thinking, gee, I don't know why I feel tired. You have nothing that makes you think it could have been a tick that bit you. But always think in your mind, back in your mind, possibilities, and we're going to get into some of the different symptoms. Okay, so the testing, sort of like, I'm not sure if you've heard a lot about the COVID testing. You know, they claim it isn't 100% accurate. Well, same issues with a lot of illnesses. And when tick-borne illnesses happen, those tests that are done, and there's 2 tests that they're currently using, are only anywhere between 45 and 50% accurate. And what normally happens is they are coming out with false negatives. What that means is they probably have it, or they do have it, but the testing is showing that it is false, that they don't have it, it's negative. That's another reason why they can continue to feel sick over and over again. So it's always very important, if that happens, that you let the adult in your household let them know that you're still not feeling well. And really, you have to be the advocate for yourself so that you can get better and feel better. Lyme disease can actually hit every different organ in your body. For some people, it affects their heart. Some people, it affects their legs. There are other effects of it. There are many, many illnesses that it mimics. So if you hear people say MS or Alzheimer's or chronic fatigue syndrome, these are all illnesses that the tick-borne illnesses can actually be mimicking. And in reality, it's Lyme disease. So what I wanted to do was really kind of give you a little bit of information also about what I call the human side of the story, okay? And the human side of the story is you kind of have to think about what is that doing to you over a period of time, and what is it doing to your family, okay? Certainly we will get into the symptoms and how that piece of it reacts, your body reacts to it. But you also have to think about, if you're sick, what happens to the rest of your family? What happens to the cost associated if you were to get Lyme disease? Many of the doctors, what I mentioned, Lyme literate doctors, do not take insurance. Because of that, your parents would have to go in and pay for whatever is necessary. Your first visit to one doctor could be $1,200. It could be $900 for a lab test. It's all very, very expensive. And that can make it much more difficult for you and much more difficult for your family, which is all the more reason you've got to get yourself tested. Tell your adults, please take me to be tested for this. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was, I have a very short story. I was over in the 4th grade at one of the schools here in Windsor, and I was talking about Lyme disease. And there was a young kid. He was sitting across from me, and it was early June. And he says to me, well, I have a tick on me now. I said, oh, come on, you're kidding me. No, I have a tick on me now. And sure enough, he walks over to me, and there is a tick engorged in his leg. And I said to him, were you out in recess earlier today? You know, what were you doing? Oh no, I was playing baseball yesterday. Now, when I heard that, it's like, when you have something like that, you need to make sure you tell an adult so that they can remove that tick. The longer that tick is in your body, the more possibility the bacteria is going to go in your body as well. So the teacher and I both said, go to the nurse, let the nurse take care of it, okay? But here again, they're everywhere. It's very, very important that you check yourself, and that's the other piece that we're going to talk about as well. So now what I wanted to do was actually talk about ticks, okay? Now, I'm sure you know this is not the size of a tick, but it's a good way for me to explain about ticks. But before I do that, what I want you to see, and if you're like me and you get kind of cringy when you see this, you may not want to look. But those of you that like spiders, okay, those are spiders. All of them are spiders, all right? Now, a tick comes from the spider family, which is they are an arachnid. That's what they are. They're an arachnid. Why are they an arachnid? Just like other spiders, they have 8 legs. We're going to get into a couple of these, but I want you to especially look at this one right here with the white dot on it. If you think that's a tick, pretty large for a tick, right? Well, that is a tick. But the interesting thing about that particular tick is it has fed. It has engorged on a person, or it's engorged on an animal, like your pet. That's what happens. Ticks actually grow 400% in weight compared to what they are as just a nymph tick or as an adult tick. Now, these are just for the poster. Ticks are not this large, okay? Think about a spider. Think about a period at the end of a sentence. A period at the end of the sentence is the size of a nymph tick. Now you got to remember there is the larva, the nymph, and the adult. The nymph tick is no bigger than a poppy seed. We use poppy seeds where we show people what the size of a nymph tick is. And you get a lot of scientists that are actually now saying that the nymph tick is scarier than the adult tick. Now the adult tick has red on it, okay? The adult female tick has red on it. That's how you know it's a female, because of the red body. The male ticks are brown, pretty much all brown. They have a hard shell, okay, which is quite different, both the female and the male, quite different than some other ticks. Some ticks have what they call a soft shell, and I'll mention the brand new tick that's come into Connecticut that has a soft shell. But this is the female. So if you see an adult tick with a red body, they will carry Lyme disease, the bacteria for Lyme disease. So they are very, very small. Certainly I have pictures, and we'll probably, I think we have them on our website as well, but even that is considered a big tick, adult tick. They're even smaller than that as well. Now, what animals carry ticks? Okay, I'm sure you've heard the term deer tick. So the black-legged tick, which is this particular lady, she's a black-legged tick, okay, they're also called the deer tick. And most people thought a deer tick was the biggest carrier of Lyme disease and tick-borne illnesses. That is not correct. Actually, the biggest carriers are these little guys. This is a field mouse, okay? Field mice, chipmunks, squirrels, rabbits, birds. They are all carriers. And if you think about it, got to think about the size of those ticks and where are they? Those ticks are on the ground, okay? So if I was sitting on the ground, I'm in close proximity to them, and the tick could go on me. Or these little guys, okay? They carry them. Now, what happens is when you get people that basically say, well, I live in the city, I'll never get bit by a tick. I don't have to worry about that. Well, the interesting thing is you've got to remember that those birds here in the country or wherever, the ticks go on them and the bird flies away with a tick on them. And then they go into a park in the city or in the grass in a city area and they drop the tick. Well, now the ticks are there. And that happens quite frequently, which is why people have a hard time thinking it's never going to happen to me, no matter where you live. And in reality, they're there. So that's one of the things that you have to think about. Now, how do they find their hosts? Okay, so I'm going to show you how this works. And that's the reason for the big tick. Now, normally, okay, these ticks are on the ground and they're walking around. Now, remember, this is a deer tick or a black-legged tick, and it's crawling. It's crawling in the grass. They love tall grass, okay? So if you're walking through a meadow or you're walking actually in the woods, or maybe the adults didn't get a chance to mow the lawn and now you have tall grass, the ticks are there and you can't really see them because they're so small. And think about that nymph one, how really tiny that is. So she's, because it's the adult female, remember, she's crawling around and the chipmunk comes along and he's just kind of walking around. Well, she latches onto him. And they have been known, the chipmunks and the field mice have been known by scientists when they've checked them, 300 to 400 ticks on their body at one time, around their neck, around their head, all of that. So then they move, and part of the issue there is if you get a chipmunk or you get a mouse and they want to go back to their nest because they have babies in the nest, guess what's happening now? Okay, those ticks are going to drop off, they're going to go in the nest, they're going to be in the nest, and they're going to be on the baby mice and on the baby chipmunks or squirrels or whatever. And that's how it continues to go over and over again. Now, that's the black-legged tick. Now, she actually climbs. They're always looking to climb up, okay? And as they climb up and they're looking for a spot, and I'm going to use a human as an example first, okay? She climbs up and she's looking for a warm spot on a person's body because she wants to hide. She wants to find a great place to hide where nobody's going to see her. So she's going to look for a warm spot, and that could be in your hair. It could be on your neck, just underneath the hair there. It could be under your elbow, under your arm, in your groin area, under your knee, in between your toes. And that's where they go. And the reason why you don't know they're there is they do two things. They actually glue themselves to whatever animal or person that they are at or going to feed from. And when they feed, got to remember that's the term is engorge. They engorge. And what are they taking out of your body or your pet's body? They're taking blood. That's how they feed. So she glues herself on first. And then she sprays sort of like an anesthetic in the respect that it numbs the spot where she's going to engorge. She can be there for 2 or 3 days and you don't know they're there. But remember how 400 times its weight it can grow to? When it gets to have fed as much as it wants, it drops off. But you may not, as I said earlier, ever knew that you actually had a tick on you because the area was numbed, okay? And she had glued herself, which is why even around your waist, if you're wearing a belt, she'll go under that area. Remember, she continues to climb up. That's what she does with the dogs, too, okay? She goes with the dogs, she'll go on their belly. My dog actually had one on her eyelid. They go in the ears, they go behind the ears. One of the places that I found out about a year ago to look for, the paws of your dog, in between the paws, they will feed in that area as well. So it's very important that you check your dog when they come in, okay? When they come in, yes, you can put preventive meds on your dog, that's great, but you've got to remember that if you haven't done anything for prevention, if you take that dog, and I know with mine, I hug mine, she doesn't go in bed with me, but a lot of people have their dog in bed, okay? And what if that tick drops off? Now where is the tick, okay? It could be coming on you. So it's always important that you check your dog and you do what you can for your dog. Now, told you about the deer tick. There's another tick. Remember, I mentioned to you the one with the dot on it? This tick right here, that's actually called a Lone Star tick. And the interesting thing about the Lone Star tick is, think about that, Lone Star. There's a state that actually uses that term, and that's Texas. So that particular tick has actually come up from that area of the country. And they hitchhike. Again, hitchhike on a bird. They may be in the cargo area of a semi-truck or whatever, and they are now up here in the Northeast, and they are very prevalent in Connecticut right now. That tick is very aggressive. And the reason why I say that is, let's say this was a Lone Star with the white dot on it. It actually could be across the yard from you, okay? Maybe you're sitting on your front steps, or maybe you're just sitting in a chair outside. And if it's even 50 feet away, you give off an aroma. And an example of what I mean is, I don't know if you've ever been outside with your buddies, but maybe one of you always seems to have bees all around you, okay? Or maybe it's mosquitoes and no one else in the group has that. It's because you're giving off a certain aroma, whether it's CO2, whatever it is. That's what that Lone Star tick is, getting an aroma off that person. And it will crawl. It will crawl quickly to you or whoever that is and climb up and do the same thing as the black-legged tick. The other piece with that particular tick is, again, they can be found anywhere, but some people that have gotten bit by that tick and did not know they had gotten bit by it ended up having a piece of meat or a sandwich at lunchtime, and when they had the sandwich at lunchtime, it was red meat, and they got an allergic reaction to it, and they ended up in the hospital. Now I did, if they weren't careful. Now I did a program not too long ago, and in that program the next day I got a call because someone actually had gotten bit that day by a Lone Star tick. So it was important to remind him he needed to get to an emergency area or a walk-in clinic and tell them it was a Lone Star if the tick wasn't on, if they didn't keep the tick. So it's very, very important that that's what you do, because that tick is very, very scary. There's a couple of other ticks that have now reached Connecticut. One that's just been in the paper and on the news. One of them is called the bat tick. So if you have bats in your attic or bats that somebody has taken out of an area, like an old shed or whatever, the ticks can drop off of that particular bat or bats, and they will crawl and they can also get on you, and they can cause illnesses as well. Not necessarily Lyme disease, but can be causing some other tick-borne illnesses. And the other one that I quickly wanted to mention is also a brand new one, and that one is called the Gulf Coast tick. And a Gulf Coast tick is right what it sounds like, right from the Gulf Coast. Now the problem with that particular tick, that has a soft body. And we've been talking about ticks, this one in the Lone Star that has the hard body, hard shell. That has a soft shell. And what happens with that tick, if you get bit by that tick, it can give you spotted fever, okay, which that also has some horrendous symptoms around it. Sometimes people don't get too sick by that, others do and end up in the hospital. But that's brand new up here. We haven't seen too many of those. The reason why we're hearing about all these new ticks is Connecticut has been great doing a tick surveillance test program, and they actually went to 40 different districts in Connecticut, and started checking the ticks that have come in and what different types of ticks we have. And that's how all of a sudden we're hearing about these other additional ones, which I think is phenomenal. They've gotten grants to do this, which is very, very helpful. So the other piece of that Gulf Coast tick that I wanted to mention is it's so small that if it gets on your dog and your dog eats it, starts chewing away and scratching and swallows it, they can get very sick from this particular tick. And yeah, there's medications, but often the dogs will remain sick for quite a long time from that because of the spotted fever. Now, when we were talking about ticks and the bacteria that it gives, and one of the things that we'll talk about is, as far as the ticks, as I mentioned, they could be on your body 48 hours, 72 hours, or whatever before it's fully engorged. Okay. In the past, the scientists truly believed that it took 48 hours for that bacteria to get into your body. They have since figured out that that's not the case. You actually can have that bacteria getting in your body or in your dog's body, okay, within 15 minutes. And the reason for that is that bacteria that's in the tick is actually in the stomach, okay? And if it had started to feed on another animal and dropped off or whatever, that bacteria had come up into its mouth, into its saliva, and in its saliva is where the bacteria is, and can go in immediately at that point into somebody's body. So that's the latest, and that's very important, which is another reason why our biggest comments is there are 6 words when we talk to you about prevention. Tick check, tick check, tick check. 6 words, very simple, okay? That's why you have to check yourself, and we're going to talk about that. But the other piece of that, what I wanted to mention, these ticks also have, let's see. We talked about the saliva. The other thing that I wanted to talk about that is they also have, the researchers are calling it antifreeze, okay? Which is another reason why they can live in the wintertime. Not only are they in this form of an igloo underneath the snow and the leaves, but they have this stuff in their body that's sort of like an antifreeze, and it keeps them okay even in the coldest winters of all. So what I was hoping to do, and again, some of the information that I have is about prevention, and there are a whole list of prevention tips, and this is specific for you all, okay, teens and middle school kids, different things you can do for prevention. So this will be on our website. We do have prevention tips currently on the website, but that entails all of it for adults as well as children and so forth. So that's something that is out there, or if you're interested in getting some of those from me, certainly you can let us know and we can get you those. So now let's say we're hiking in the woods. We need to dress properly, okay? This is the prevention piece, and this is very, very important. You need to dress in a special way. Now, if you think back to what I said about they climb up, and they're climbing up from high grass or whatever, the most important thing you need to really think about is your shoes, your socks, your legs, probably up to as far as your knees. Yeah, you should be doing stuff for your whole body. You should be wearing long sleeve, you should be wearing gloves, and I know in the summertime it's pretty hot, but you should have those long sleeves, long pants on. Take the socks, put them over the pants. It makes it much more difficult for those ticks to come in. The other piece of that is use a prevention, whether it's a non-chemical, like they have things like lemon and eucalyptus that you can use and spray. You can spray your socks, you can spray your shoes with it, up to your knees with it. Got to remember, if it's not chemical, you probably need to spray more frequently. So if you're out there 4, 5, 6 hours, take a small lemon and eucalyptus and use that more than once. But there are also chemical ones. The chemical ones are Picaridin. There is permethrin. Those are both very, very good. They are not harmful. Even though you're supposed to put them on your clothes, they really won't harm you if it gets on your leg. You're going to come back in the house and take a shower anyway. So you want to do whatever you can. Wear a hat, wear a high neck if you can. Again, I know in the summertime you don't want to do it. We have board members that in the summertime, they never put shoes on. They have sandals on all the time, okay? But he sprays. One of them sprays. There's a brand that's called Cedarside. This is a non-chemical, and you can use this and spray it all over you. This is great. This actually works great. So that's one of the things you want to do. You're walking, you're hiking, whatever. You're sitting in your yard. Many people have a bush that's called the Japanese barberry bush. And what you need to know about the Japanese barberry bush is the ticks love it. And the reason why they love it is underneath that bush is a very moist soil. And the field mice and the chipmunks will go under there, and the ticks might drop off them, and now the ticks are coming up through the bush. And all you would need to do is brush your shoulder on it, and you're going to have quite a few ticks on you. So even the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station, who is very, very knowledgeable about this, has great information. That's another place to look for information. They will basically tell your parents to get rid of that, because a lot of people were buying these, and these were invasive bushes, but the nurseries have them. And they were buying them because they really cover beautifully, but they can harbor the ticks. So you want to make sure they have berries on them at certain times of the year. If you're on a path, try not to go into the woods section. Don't walk through that area. So you got to try to dress the best you can. When you come in, it's very important that you take those clothes off. Tell your parents you want to put them in a separate place, okay? You don't want to throw them on your floor, okay? You don't want to throw them on your bed. What you want to do is find a place where you can put those clothes, and the adult, or maybe you're washing your own clothes now. Put them in, before you put them in the wash, put them in the dryer. You put them in the dryer for 15 to 20 minutes at the hottest you can get them, and you will kill the ticks. What we do know is if you put them in the wash, those ticks could still be alive. So when you take the clothes out of the wash and you haven't put it in the dryer first, they could be crawling out as well. We've been told, we've seen people that have had that situation occur. So it's very important that you put them in the dryer. When we talked about putting them in a separate place, because you don't want to commingle them with other clothes. Because now, especially on the floor or on your bed, those things could be walking around, which isn't a good thing. After you do that, you want to make sure that you take a shower. And if you remember my 6 words, I'm hoping you're saying them right now: tick check, tick check, tick check. Check all those warm spots on your body. Wash your hair, okay? Because anything that's there, you still have a good possibility you'll be able to wash them off, and you'll see them on the bottom of the shower area. That's very important. Now, how to get the tick off? All right, to get the tick off, you can use any kinds of things. If you have a tweezer in your house, okay? Everybody know what a tweezer is? Okay, you could use a tweezer. Some of you may even have little tools with a magnifying glass, okay? We have things like a spoon. See the little notch on the spoon? And what you do is that tick, and I'm showing you that it's here. Most likely it isn't going to be that close where I'd be able to see it that easily. But the tick is here, and I'm going to put it underneath the head where that little notch is, okay? put it under the head, lift it up, and don't put it in the toilet. A lot of people talk about throwing it down the toilet. You don't want to do that because actually ticks can live 2 to 3 days in water. And I'd hate to think that tick is going to come back up again. So please don't throw it in there. You can put it in a jar, you could put it in a plastic bag, whatever you need to do. Take it out with that, or you take it out with the tweezer. And the most important thing is when you're taking it out, you lift it up, and when you lift it up, you want to get the head out. And the reason for the head, if you think about it, is that saliva that I said is where that bacteria is. Even though that tick has now been cut in half because you pulled it out, half of it out, there is still that bacteria there, and that bacteria is what will still drip into your body or your animal's body. So you've got to get the head out. And if you want, you can send it. If you find that it was engorged for a long period of time, you certainly can send it to the health department. Most health departments will take it and then, first of all, check it. Is it a black-legged tick, or is it maybe just a dog tick? And they will send it to Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station. Again, that is the key place. It's called CAES, okay? Actually, they have some great information on their site about that Lone Star tick and a number of other what they're calling exotic ticks, but they also have the black-legged tick information as well. So that's what you would want to do. Send it out. They will test it and see if it's positive with bacteria. Now, we talked about the bacteria quite a bit. Well, the bacteria is really called a spirochete bacteria. Okay, and the reason why it's called a spirochete is it looks like a spiral, corkscrew, okay? And this is the shape of what that spirochete is, and it is going in your bloodstream, okay? And that's what it looks like. And it hides. It literally will hide in the cells of your body, which is all the more reason why you have to be sure that you're checking yourself and your animals. We talked about prevention for you. There's prevention for your dogs. As I said, they have sprays. I put the drops on my dog. They actually even have like this you would put through their collar. And this has got the permethrin in it, and the ticks will not go on your dog. This is very simple also. So if you kind of forget, oh, I can't remember the last time I sprayed my dog, and you had one of these, you put this on and the dog would be fine as well. So there's lots of different things that you could do. Now, one of the things that you have there, you know, we always say, okay, we know a lot about these ticks now, and we know, you know, all of the different animals that will carry the tick. This is just kind of a fun thing of what the tick is. But how can we get rid of the ticks? Okay. Are there any animals that can get rid of those ticks for us? Now, at one time, I thought it might have been snakes because they're kind of swiveling around. But we are now finding pictures of ticks, hundreds of ticks, on the back and the head of snakes. So apparently, they aren't the best predator for the ticks. But I know this guy looks ugly. I know he does. But are you all kind of making faces or whatever when you see this? This is the opossum, okay? This is his diet. His diet will be ticks. In one season, he can eat thousands of ticks. He loves them. So if you have one in your backyard or you see one, let him be. Stay away from him, but let him be, because he is going to do a good job on eating those ticks. So even though he isn't the cutest animal, he certainly is very, very helpful. There are other animals, like fowl. There are some chickens some guinea fowl, they're called. They also like to eat ticks. Some turkeys, or I should say the turkeys will eat some, but it isn't their full diet. But they will eat ticks as well. So those are some of the animals that are best as far as helping us get rid of some of those ticks. So the other piece of this is, okay, you got bit. You could either have seen the tick, had it tested, or maybe you never saw it, and all of a sudden you're not feeling good, okay? So what happens is you start to feel like you have the flu or COVID-19, okay? A lot of those symptoms are exactly the same. Fatigue, headaches, fever, maybe nausea, any of those things. The biggest thing I think, or one of the biggest things, is you usually have a lot of energy, lots and lots of energy to do things. And all of a sudden you don't have energy to do anything. And all you want to do is just sit on the couch, okay? Why? What is it? Okay, there are possibilities. It could be a number of different things. But if it is Lyme disease or some of these other tick-borne illnesses, you need to find out, and your parents need to find out, okay? Again, it mimics 300 other kinds of illnesses. So you really have to be diligent. Remember what's bothering you, how you don't feel good, you know, what's wrong. Some of it could be very simply, they use the term brain fog, okay? What normally will come to you like that, all of a sudden you can't remember it. Why? Okay? I have a good excuse. My excuse is I'm getting old, okay? I can forget things, but you don't usually, okay? So why all of a sudden is that maybe occurring? Why is that happening, okay? It could be, I've heard stories when people have not been checked or not taken the meds, the antibiotics, okay, where they know they should be doing something, or they're looking at something on the screen and they don't know what they're looking at. These are all much further down the road. So hopefully, if you really see those flu symptoms and a lot of this other, I won't call them minor symptoms, but other parts of it, it might give you some clues that maybe you have Lyme disease. Now, as I mentioned, my son has Lyme disease, and he's had it for many, many years. But he also has two other tick-borne illnesses. He has Babesia and he has Bartonella. And Babesia, it will often, the symptoms often are fevers that don't go away. You know, you go to bed, you're sweating terribly, again, cognitive forgetting issues, a lot of that. So think about those things. Again, on our website, we have a lot of information about the different types of illnesses that can be caused by the tick-borne illnesses. We do our own brochure, and in this brochure it lists six, seven other possible tick-borne illnesses and information about it. If you're not sure if your dog got bit, okay, or you did find the tick, and some of the things that your dog will get, and this is a picture of it, okay? What can happen is they get very lethargic, very tired. They don't want to go out and play. They don't want to play with you in the house. They might change. They were always very pleasant, very happy, never harmed anybody, and all of a sudden they're starting to growl and they're showing their teeth, and they're just not what your dog has always been. Those are signs of Lyme disease or other tick-borne illnesses. So you might want to take that into consideration as well. So there's just really a tiny little bit left that I wanted to talk to you about, because when I do these presentations, I normally will ask you, can you think of anything, okay, in the future, what we can do to mitigate, okay, to lessen the number of ticks that we have? Okay, what can we do? Is it about killing the ticks? Is it about killing the animals? I certainly don't want to kill the animals. Okay, I want to get rid of those ticks. And I want to make it okay that the animals are okay and those baby animals are okay. So think about it, because you are going to be our future and you're going to be able to come up with these things. Okay, we actually came up with something that was very simple, and later is now, not that we told them to do this, but we have one of our people on our board, he decided he was going to make something for the animals to go back to their nests. Because remember I said to you about the nests. The nests, they bring the ticks around their head they're in the nest with the babies, and now the babies get infected and they've got the ticks on them. So it's important. He kept thinking, well, what can I do about the nests? And what he did was he took a toilet roll, bathroom tissue roll, and stuck lint from a dryer and sprayed it. Sprayed it with either the Picardin or the permethrin, which I told you are the chemicals, okay? Remember, those should be on your clothes, not necessarily on your skin. You don't want those on your skin. And he puts them outside, okay? He puts them outside, and initially when he did it, he just didn't paint them, didn't do anything. Put them outside and waited, put them all over his yard. He went back maybe 4 or 5 days later, and most of them still had the lint in it, and he couldn't figure out why. So then he went in and did more research, and how these scientists and researchers know this, I have no idea. But apparently mice love these two colors, okay, a turquoise blue and a yellow. So then he took a bunch of these and painted them, put the lint in with the permethrin, put them outside. Went back 3 days later, there was no lint left. Those field mice and those chipmunks basically took that. Now, you got to remember, which I didn't mention about when you're going out hiking, but you got to figure those chipmunks and those squirrels are in the trees, but the chipmunks and the field mice are probably having nests either in the ground or in stone walls or in log piles, okay? So that's what they did. They actually went back, took the lint out, and brought it to those areas. So he knew that was not going to kill the little baby animals. What it did do was it killed the ticks. And over a period of time, he kept doing this, and he didn't have any more ticks in his yard. Now, the problem with that is this is only cardboard. It rains, okay? It's going to pour, it's going to get soggy. It might still work. But an inventor actually created something very similar, okay? And there are all of these out on the market with somewhat like lint, also sprayed with permethrin. And you can buy these, okay, out on the internet or whatever, and this works exactly the same way, but it's much sturdier, as you can see. So what I'd like you to do is really think about that, okay? What else could we do? We have upstate New York that's actually putting almost like a little car wash, if that makes sense, underneath the leaves. So every time a field mouse goes in there, there is some form of a spray that actually gets rid of the ticks off of the field mice, kills them. What else can we do? What are other things we can do? And I think that would be a good project for you to possibly work on, okay? Come up with some things. But in the meantime, the most important thing I want you to do is these 6 words. Remember? Tick check, tick check, tick check. That's it. That's the 6 words. And check yourself. I really mean it. That's the most, if you want to prevent it, you want to prevent Lyme disease, that's key. Well, I want to thank you very much for listening to me. I hope I gave you some good information. Again, go on our website, vald.org, valdct.org. Find some more information. You'll find my phone number on there. If you need to reach me, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to call me, or the teacher can call me. All of that, you know, that's what we're here for, okay? Because we want to help you to understand and make sure that you don't get sick, okay? And be very careful, be safe out there. Thank you very much.